You haven't been bored in years. Think about that. Not on the bus, not in a waiting room, not for a single idle minute. And your brain is paying for it. What's disappearing inside you right now has no name, no diagnosis, no awareness. But neuroscientists have been tracking it since 2008. And what they found changes everything you think you know about focus, creativity, and the will to exist. For so many years, boredom was unavoidable. You hunted, you waited, you sat in darkness with nothing. Your brain had no choice but to be alone with itself. Anthropologists studying the Hadza people, one of the last hunter-gatherer tribes on Earth, found that they spend an average of 4 hours a day doing absolutely nothing. No stimulation, no input, just existing. That wasn't laziness. That was biology working exactly as designed. Because boredom is not an absence of something, it is a signal. The most important signal your brain produces. And for the first time in human history, we silenced it. In 2014, a researcher at the University of Virginia gave participants a choice. They could sit alone with their thoughts for 15 minutes, or they could press a button that delivered an electric shock. Participants had already rated the shock as painful. They had said they would pay money to avoid it. 67% of men chose the shock. They preferred physical pain to being alone with their own mind. And this is where it stops being about boredom. The human brain has a default mode. Neuroscientists call it the default mode network. It activates when you do nothing, when you stare out a window, when you wait, when you are bored. It consumes more energy than almost any active task. It isn't doing nothing. It is doing the most important thing the brain does. It is processing who you are. It is connecting memories, building identity, generating empathy, producing creativity. Every idea you have ever had came from this network. Every person you have ever understood was processed through the system. The default mode network is not your brain resting. It is your brain becoming human, and it only activates when you are bored. In 2008, researchers began noticing something. The default mode network in frequent smartphone users was activating less. Not slightly less, measurably, significantly less. The neural pathways were thinning, like a road that stops being used. Because the brain operates on one simple rule: use it or lose it. Every time you feel the first flicker of boredom and reach for your phone, you send one signal to your brain, and your brain obeys. It suppresses the default mode network. It floods you with dopamine instead. Instant, easy, artificial, and each time it does, the network gets a little weaker, the road gets a little narrower, the self gets a little quieter. People who reported the highest phone use showed the lowest capacity for self-reflection, the lowest empathy scores, the lowest creative output, the lowest sense of personal identity, not because they were less intelligent, because a specific neural system had been starved, and a starved system does not recover easily. There is a word psychologists use for this: ego depletion, the gradual erosion of the self when the mechanisms that build the self are never allowed to run. It is the feeling of reaching for your phone and not knowing why. The feeling of finishing a video and immediately starting another without choosing to. The feeling of sitting in a room full of people and feeling nothing. Not sadness, not happiness, nothing. That nothing has a biological cause. Your default mode network is not firing. The system that generates feeling has been suppressed so many times it has forgotten how to start. You are not depressed, you are not broken, you are starving, and you cannot feel the hunger anymore. Scientists are divided on whether this is reversible. The optimistic camp points to neuroplasticity. The brain can rebuild. Given time, given silence, sustained and deliberate boredom. Studies show that even 2 weeks of reduced phone use begins to restore default mode network activity. But the pessimistic camp points to something darker. They point to children, the first generation raised entirely inside constant stimulation, who have never known a moment of genuine boredom, whose default mode networks never fully developed in the first place. You cannot restore something that was never built. The researchers studying this generation are not optimistic, because neuroplasticity has a window. And for the youngest cohort of humans alive right now, that window may already be closing. The Hadza sit for 4 hours a day doing nothing. They have done this for thousands of years. They have no clinical depression, no epidemic of anxiety, no identity crisis, no sense of emptiness. They are bored regularly, and they are whole. We built a world that eliminated boredom. We called it progress and connection. We called it entertainment. We gave ourselves everything except the one condition under which the self is built. There is a generation alive today that has never sat alone with their own mind. Not once. Not for 15 minutes. And the researchers who study what that does to a person do not use words like concerning or worth monitoring. They use a different word, irreversible. The last generation that knew boredom is still alive. You might be part of it, or you might be watching this on the device that made sure you never had to find out.